Welcome to the Game of Thrones podcast, the officially unofficial podcast for Game of Thrones on HBO. I'm Jim.
I'm Aaron.
And today we're talking about Season 3, Episode 4, titled, And Now His Watch Is Ended. That would be the brother who they're burning on the pyre.
Yeah, that's it, Bannon.
Yeah. His watch is over for sure.
We'll not see the likes of him ever again.
Nope. What'd you think of this episode?
I thought this was a really good episode because it's like, especially on rewatch with some distance removed, because it's interesting to see, you know, and we're not going to spoil anything, obviously, but knowing what's coming, it's interesting to see all the different machinations. Like, you've got Peake, Tywin, Olenna, Marjorie, Littlefinger, Varys, Tyrion, all scheming and trying to compile information and not working on incomplete information. And at the kids' table, you have Joffrey and Cersei.
Right.
But it's really fun because, like, you are not sure whose people's loyalties are, what they're actually wanting, how nakedly self-interested are they. You know, we really don't know a lot of the I mean, Tywin, we know he's pretty nakedly self-interest, but everybody else is shades of gray, and Littlefinger. And I thought that's what really propels the episode. Plus, I thought the mutiny at Craster's Keep was cool. The old bear going out like a boss was pretty awesome. And
I just wish he had squeezed a little bit harder.
I know.
Just a little bit harder, a little bit longer.
Clearly the man's doomed, but could you just crush Rast's windpipe?
Please.
I mean, god damn it. And then, of course, you know, Dany betraying the Maesters, or the Wise Masters, rather.
It was amazing to me what they did with just a single scene of Dany in this episode, because, like, I felt like I hadn't missed a beat, you know, from last episode where she's getting shit on and she's making these deals that people think are crazy, and then, you know, she comes in like a boss and just lays waste to the whole city.
Yeah, and
the Masters. I
have my problems sometimes with Alex Graves' take on Game of Thrones, but he really brought the epic. Like, that scene where Jorah is like staggering through the smoke and fire of the ruin, I felt would be at home in like a Kubrick or a Coppola production. Like, that's like, that's Full Metal Alchemist. That's Full Metal Jacket. That's Apocalypse Now. Like, I love the smell of burning slavers in the morning.
Yeah.
Smells like victory. But yeah, what'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Vigorously nodding. So
I mean, the scene with Cersei and Tywin, yet another awesome scene for Charles Dance, who just plays the worst father in history.
And he is Tywin.
He is, yeah.
He is just that's, he just owns that role.
I mean, I've never read the book, so of course, obviously, by de facto, he defines Tywin for me, but I can't imagine anyone else playing him.
What's amazing is, like, even when I read the book and the book description is not especially Dance-like, I still see, like, as I'm seeing his golden lamb chops described, I'm still seeing Charles Dance.
Golden lamb chops?
Yeah, like...
He's got the big...
Yeah, he's got... Right. Yeah. But no, it is really good. And that scene also shows that he's an equal opportunity shitty father, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's
Tyrion,
not just Tyrion.
Cersei.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really, like, I don't even know that, like, Tyrion gets it worse, because he's just dismissive, and, like, he called Cersei stupid to her face and ineffectual, and, oh, you think you're my favorite child? Well, let me set you straight. Like, any child that has the temerity to ask anything from him gets smacked down.
Yeah, and of course, you know, Tyrion's not allowed to inherit lands or titles, but guess what? Neither is Cersei.
Yeah, and that's just because she has a vagina.
Exactly.
Like, she just came into the world with that. Like, she didn't have to be born deformed or a whoremonger or anything like that.
No, I think Tywin probably views her as being born deformed because she's a woman.
I mean, you are not wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, great episode yet again. There's some good Jaime and Brienne moments in there too, which we'll talk about all of it. Are we ready to do that?
Let's do it.
All right, we start off with Jaime forced to ride with his severed hand around his neck, and he grows weak and falls off his horse, and then he tries to fight his way to freedom, but he's really just no match for his captors. And I can't tell if he's no match because there are just too many of them and he doesn't have as good sword hand, or if he's actually weak, or if that was just a ruse.
Well, I mean, certainly he hasn't gotten any stronger since Brienne and him tussled, and now he's using his offhand. So I think it's just pathetic is what it is. Yeah. And the men are using it as like sport, like, and man, there's so many great things because, like, I feel like when he fell in that shitty mud hole and he came up with the sword, they had this quick look of Brienne where she's got like a raging justice boner, like she just because of the person she is kind of believes for a minute that maybe Jaime's going to prevail against all these people. But then he doesn't, of course,
and maybe in good health with a good hand.
Right, and she has to get it because, like, she can't abide this bullying and like this betrayal of what it means to be a warrior and a knight, so she gets mixed into it too. Yeah.
She can't abide dishonor in whatever form it comes.
Yeah. I mean, she'd literally rather die.
Yeah. I do bet that Jaime here is wishing he had been a little more cooperative with Brienne, as now he has a new escort who's not quite as accommodating.
Yes.
To put it nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can kind of see that on his face.
Every time he fell into the mud and that, like, probably shit too, I'm thinking, you've got a stump.
Yeah.
An open stump, and like the infection potential here is just like, it literally, it's like, it's a very unpleasant feeling to contemplate that. And also the hand jangling, like there's one scene where he ends up in the mud and the hand is kind of like on his face. I'm like, that's gotta stink so bad. And it's got to smell, and it's your plus it's the horror, or if it's your own hand, you know.
I'm not so worried about the smell. It's more like the reminder.
It's just the whole thing. Like it's like there's the show's not short of its forms of torture, but I'm pretty sure chopping a man's hand off and making him wear it as a necklace is. I mean, I guess Davos does it by choice. He consented.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
he does.
He wears the bones as a good luck charm. So
forgot about that. He doesn't show them off very much.
No, it keeps him in that little baggie.
All right, then we go to Tyrion asking Varys to find proof that his sister tried to have him killed. Varys tells Tyrion the story of how he was cut, as he calls it, and then he reveals that this box he's been opening the entire scene contains the sorcerer, the man who did it. This is a great scene, too. It really gives you a look into Varys' head, with his idea of influence, and, in this case, revenge being a case of patience.
Right.
And he is, I don't know if he's the most patient man in Westeros, but he's damn near.
Well, the other thing I like it is because Varys, people fear Varys because of his spy network and what he can do with that information, but a lot of people, see him as weak and and unmanly. And I just think this story he lays out of being this little boy and, slice root to stem, and then using that anger and that disgust and to work himself up from this lowly position to, on the small council and being a big mover and shaker in Westeros and across the whole planet, I think is kind of like, underestimate Varys at your peril. Because his anger and rage and revenge runs deep, and his cons are long.
Yes.
And maybe we'll talk a little bit more of that in the spoiler section. But I would not want to be that warlock in that their crate.
Yeah. No, he's also, this is a case of the magic, not the ice magic or whatever the White Walkers have going on, kind of being verified by somebody we trust as the audience. And I don't know what the leanings of the sorcerer are. Does he say in this scene whether it's like a Lord of the Light thing or whether
they don't. He could be we've seen the warlocks of Preet, we've seen like you said,
he does describe it as like a flame, but a blue flame, and so maybe it's like a Lord of the Light kind of thing,
right,
where he's sacrificing his genitals to the Lord of the Light for some that Lord of the Light. He's really he's hungry for genitals.
Yeah.
He needs genitals.
I wonder because I was, it's funny because when I was taking my notes, I texted back and forth to Anthony, the guy I'm writing this religion book. And I'm like, because we're pondering a second volume of expanded material and things that are interesting topics, but we want to do a 45,000 word thing, and we're probably could easily write 100,000 words on it. And I'm like, it might be interesting to do these, what would you call these religions? These things that are these just witchcraft and sorcery and they're unknown god or maybe even just demonology or something. And it'd be cool to kind of do a deep dive on that, because there's all this stuff, and there's these woods witches and these unnamed warlocks worshiping unknown gods, and what does that have in You know, because like a lot of times, like in modern times, we think of witches and it's like the Wiccan stuff, but like,
Right.
you know, there people I think used to carry themselves as magic practitioners, and were those just religions we didn't understand? I think that's a fascinating topic, and something that, you know, unfortunately we only know what George is going to tell us about it. But there is these like in the cracks between the major religions, all these weirdos off doing shit both wicked and benign.
All right, then we move on to. Or did you want to talk anything about Tyrion and his concerns?
No, I
here?
just like he comes in here with a big pity party and Varys isn't having it. And it's such an inspiring speech, like the whole, like, you know, patience and the contents of a man's letters being worth more than his purpose, and revenge will be yours if you have the patience and the stomach for it. And that's the thing that I thought was the real where Varys turns into a hard ass, is like, I mean, this is the equivalent of him slapping Tyrion in the face, like Tyrion slapped Joffrey. Like, are you going to be so weak that not only do you not have the patience to, oh God, you don't have influence, you're still a rich boy, and your dad hates you, but everybody else in the land, like, look at me, look what I did, and like, if you did have your revenge, what are you going to do? You going to string up Cersei? You going to chop off her head, put on a battlement? Like, are you really going to, like, if you have her in this box, what are you going to do, little man?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Tyrion knows.
Yeah, he might not yet. And he might need some guidance from someone who's a little more patient. And I think, like, also the fact that he's so down on this new position he has, right?
Yeah.
Being the master of coin.
Yeah.
But look at what Littlefinger has done with that, right? Littlefinger has moved on from that. He used that as a catapult to potentially going and marrying into an army, as they talk about here.
Yeah.
Becoming one of the most dangerous men in Westeros, and potentially, as Varys fears, gaining all of the North. Like, this could be a springboard if you look at it in the right light.
I mean, he's already got Harrenhal. He's soon to have the Vale. If he has the North, like, he's arguably the most powerful single man, not the king in Westeros.
Right.
And those
Certainly
guys can
the
even be
armies.
threats to the king, especially if you get the parts of the world that are kind of like untouched by like battle, like the Vale is.
Right.
And it's interesting because like there's the symmetry that all three of Tywin's children get a drubbing. You know, on their moral and work ethic failures, I suppose. You know, Cersei gets it from Tywin, but you know, Jaime gets one from Brienne. Here's Tyrion getting one from Varys. And to see like the reactions for all that. And the other thing is Varys is like proof. It's like, this is busy work for you, trying to prove that your sister did this. Like, you either know it or you don't. And then, like, this is just delaying you to contemplate the next step, which is the revenge aspect that I don't even think you have the stomach for. It's great. It's a fucking great speech. It's well written and extremely well acted and shot.
Yeah. All right, move to the Night's Watch, who are shoveling pig shit up at Craster's. It becomes clear that some of them, the ones we like, are willing to still follow Lord Commander's leads. The ones we don't, namely Rast, are not. And you can see that things are not well in the ranks.
Yeah, Grin and Ed are shoveling shit. Rast is starting it.
Yep. very, very good. And then we move on to Gilly. She's very worried about her baby boy's life. And Sam's trying to comfort her, but neither of them, including Sam, I think, believes that he's capable of protecting her and this boy. So kind of ends there. He storms out of the tent.
Yeah, I mean, they're throwing his stupid thimble back in his face, and it's like, I don't want your fucking thimble. I want you to save my baby's life. And if you can't do that, I got no time for you, because all I have is time for him, and he's got not much of it. It's just slamming the door shut on him. And, you know, man, it's like, I'm saying, it's like, this is an episode where people get their comeuppance, or people get, like, gut checked.
Yep.
And we'll see what comes of it.
So then there's a dream that Bran is having where he climbs a tree, and he finds his mother, who, in the course of making him promise not to climb anymore, causes him to fall in a shot that is... it looks identical to the shot where he falls out of the tower. He's pushed out of the tower.
I also thought it's nice echoes back to, you know, Ned's sister with her, you know, like he's in this promise that we don't know what's all about, that his sister made him make. Like, there's like, I think there's intentional echoes of that in this scene.
All right. And he, when, you know, wakes up from that dream and Jojen's staring at him like he knows what's up, because he's in the beginning of this dream.
I was your mother in that dream, Brandon.
Oh God. Scary. All All right, Roz reports Podrick's profound sexual skills to Varys, and Varys is more interested in Littlefinger's plans, which Roz is happy to spill the beans on. Littlefinger apparently is booking 2 feather beds for the ship he's leaving on, which leads them to believe that he's taking Sansa.
Joke's on them, because he's just putting Sansa in a crate. He's just doubling up on the feather bed.
Right.
Oh,
I might want to sleep in a different bed.
this is your best mattress? I'll take 2. Because
Right.
by God, if I shift and I feel a hard deck beneath me, I'm going to burn the ship down that I'm on.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because I thought I started rolling my eyes. I'm like, wow, they really run with this pod to rod thing in this season. But it's really cleverly written, because it's this like light, fluffy thing about prodigies in odd places, but then it pivots to Roz kind of showing her qualities, that she's literate, she's got a good head on her shoulders, and she sees the significance of the 2 feather beds.
Right.
And
Even maybe, she's had more time to think about it, but maybe more readily than Varys even does.
Well, I was debating that when I was watching this. I'm like, is Varys sandbagging a little bit because he wants to kind of see her strut her stuff to see exactly what he's working with? Because
Gotcha.
I maybe he didn't notice the feather beds, but like asking, well, maybe it's for his women. Like if it's for Littlefinger's women, they'll be in his feather bed.
Sure.
Like I get you don't have the equipment anymore, but you do understand how it works, right? Right?
Yeah, it also serves, this thing with Podrick, and then the more important thing with Littlefinger, it also serves to show you that he's gathering information of all types, right? He doesn't just want to know what the most important people in Westeros are doing at any moment. He also wants to know more about the people who are close to them, which I think is good. Maybe that information comes in handy later. He doesn't know, so he collects it.
Yeah, and I think this is like some of the first like direct opposition to Littlefinger. Like they've often sparred and jockeyed for power, but like Varys is actually moving to, because he's alarmed. Like Littlefinger is just taking 3 massive steps beyond him in the game, and he's working to actively check him.
So then we go to Joffrey giving Marjorie a macabre tour of the Sept of Baelor. That's what this place is called, yeah? Great Sept.
The Great Sept of Baelor. Baelor the Blessed.
While Cersei and Olenna discuss the history of their husbands and their sons, and Joffrey's tour ends when they hear the rowdy crowds outside the gates. Marjorie convinces Joffrey to go out to greet them as Cersei feels her influence waning.
We talk about Jack Gleeson here, and how tough it is to play, because like as I was watching the show, it's like it is really tough to play this guy straight, where like he's laughing, like, and there's nothing that in his face, because I feel like a lot of people would like camp this up,
right?
You know,
wink at the camera to let you know,
like the
that
Alan
they
Rickmans
know.
of the world, or the Willem Dafoes of the world would have added a little bit more to this, and he's just I'm playing a psychopath, and I think it's hilarious, the idea that someone would feed their mother to a dragon in front of somebody, or drink wildfire and kill himself, and then like
The fool.
and there's also he's a little stupid, because he says like he thought drinking wildfire bring back the dragons. He was wrong, like because he would need that clarification. Otherwise,
right. And it shows his dim view of Marjorie as
That
like a
too.
woman who's not well learned in these.
Yeah,
He's just a shit all around, and you're right. He plays it so perfectly.
does not flinch from what a shit he's being asked to be, which is kind of like, I think, like as brave as acting gets.
Yeah, I mean, it's what sets this character apart from other bad guys,
Right.
From other villains,
Right.
in my mind.
Right. Because there's like, some people like, like Darth Vader has his champions. There's people that like Darth Vader.
Sure.
Joffrey, Joffrey's not inspiring a fan base.
No, you can't
I don't
like
think
Joffrey.
so. Or if it is the kind of fan base like Charles Manson has.
Right.
But yeah, it's that so that first part is pretty glorious. And then we have Olenna is so interesting, because I feel like she almost gets Cersei on her side by like with just how she's sized up Cersei, probably with Marjorie's help, with intelligence, and like hits exactly the point that the hits the chord in her that's going to resonate. Like, oh, you know, it's us women. Like, if only the men would listen. Like, our boys are always trying to kill themselves.
Yeah, how hard it is to
Right.
to teach your sons anything.
Right, and she's also, because like Cersei's like, well, you know, your all self-deprecation is all well and good, but also, you know, your husband and son have done these, and oh, you just laid siege to a banquet table. Like, everything's just, oh, you don't worry
Right.
about us roses, and it's really calculated and good, and like I think Cersei almost falls for it until at the very end,
Yeah.
when
She falls back in line, you know,
Especially-
plays the part of someone who
especially in Marjorie, she sees Marjorie lead like something that she could never get Joffrey to do, to go out there and let the people adore him and like play it up a little bit.
Right. And this is the thing. I almost feel like the combination of Olenna and Marjorie are pushing a little too fast here. Like,
Yeah.
maybe if they hadn't gone so hard after Joffrey and had started on Cersei a little bit earlier, this might have worked. Because I think the thing that you know sets Cersei off here is seeing that Olenna is trying to do the same to her that Marjorie is doing to Joffrey.
Right.
She sees those parallels,
Right, it's
and
good
she's
cop,
not
good
incredibly stupid. She's just like not as smart as maybe her father is, but
Right.
like she gets what's going on here, and yeah, she immediately shuts that down.
Right. Cersei's interesting because I'll even grant that like maybe she could have been as good as her dad, but like she's like a very talented person. Again, I don't know that I actually believe this, but if I was to make an argument that Cersei was like this talented prodigy, but she's like you know, Amadeus, if he never got to play a piano until he was 38 years old. Like, you can have all that genius that you want, but like if every single time you try to step forward and be like, well, put a sword in my hand, no, go back to knitting.
Yeah.
I want to sit in the war council, no, go read fucking, you know, Jonquil and what's her face. I can't remember the stupid thing. But go back and read your night stories. Like, you know, how good could she possibly be?
Yeah.
And then the whole time she was with Robert was just, you know, the realm was kind of at peace, and Robert's a shitty king, and there wasn't a lot of machinations going on. Her dad was kind of running things. I understand her frustration. But you know, I don't know. I also think the Tywin's kind of got the right of it. She's not as smart as she thinks she is. And also Tyrion says that too. Those two people that seem to be smart and penetrating in their analysis.
Yeah. All right, then we go to Theon, who is riding with his savior, the Mop Boy, as they talk about how he came to be loyal to him and his family. Theon then talks about his father, how he didn't trust him to take Winterfell because he believed him to be loyal to the Starks, which causes Theon to reveal his remorse for killing the Stark boys and admit that his true family were always the Starks. He kind of comes full circle during this scene.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm a Stark. I would never be a Stark. Oh my God, I'm a Stark.
Yeah.
And then this Mop Boy leads Theon into a room where he claims Yara awaits, but instead he has him led right back to the torture chamber and turns him back over to his captors.
And I was thinking of this Mop Boy, and now that we know that he's playing at least both sides, what a treasure trove of psychological information and actionable information.
Yeah.
This guy just confessed that the Starks are not dead, but they're actually in the wind. That's super valuable for multiple people in the realm. His true loyalties, his deepest fears, his insecurities. Like, my God,
The
if you're...
divisions in his family.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting, if I want to step back another level and say, I think, like, this kind of interrogation is the ones that actually bring fruit. Like, there's not torture happening here. This is building common cause and getting a person on your side and empathizing with them and letting them do the work for you.
This is the con man at work. The
Right.
confidence man.
Like you might never get this stuff out of Theon if you just started, you know, peeling fingernails off and stuff. But he voluntarily gives it up because he can't help it. It's interesting. It's an interesting scene.
Yeah. I don't have a ton more to say about it, except, damn, what a mindfuck.
Yeah.
So there's more riding with Jaime and Brienne, and when they stop, Jaime wants to die. He's had enough. And Brienne shames him for giving up when he gets just the smallest taste of what the less fortunate have to deal with every day. And when he starts eating, she asks why he helped her, but he doesn't answer.
Yep. That's her whole, like, you sound like a bloody woman. It's like, the oppressed holding up the oppressor. uh, but yeah, like she devastates him. Oh, you get one taste of the kind of real world misfortunes that befall literally everyone but you, and you're ready to give up and cry. Like it is pathetic, and it's not a good look, and
it sinks in.
And also,
to Jamie's credit, like
it does.
He gets it.
And then the dual question of like, so why, and why did you help me?
Yeah.
I mean, this is Jamie trying to, I think, or maybe synthesizing like who he act like. He's for the first time away from his family utterly.
Right.
Like there's no one there that's going to second guess or what, like, what kind of man did he want to be once upon a time, and what flashes, like which is the mask and which is the real Jamie. And these scenes and the scenes that we'll be getting this throughout the season are going to kind of illuminate that for us.
Then we move to Cersei asking her father if they're doing everything they can to get Jamie back. Tywin irritatedly assures her that he's doing what he can. However, she's also here to tell him that Marjorie's dangerous because she's manipulating Joffrey. And Tywin, happy that someone has done it, blames Cersei for not controlling him. And when Cersei suggests, oh, maybe you should try if you think it's so easy, he says, yeah, I'm going to. He decides to prove her wrong.
Yep.
So without knowledge of the future happenings here, it would seem like a good strategy to, okay, Marjorie has her claws into Joffrey. Let's get some claws into Marjorie.
Right.
If you can manipulate Joffrey via Marjorie, you might have a chance at controlling Joffrey.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, yeah,
it seems like a smart strategy for Tywin to pursue that avenue.
And also, like, why, you're his mother. Why couldn't you control this boy or figure out a way? Like, it didn't have to be like, it's like you got displaced by Marjorie effortlessly because you never even made the attempt.
Yeah.
And in fact, the person trying to bring the boy, like, I think Tyrion, aided and abetted by the small council, did their best to kind of keep Joffrey on a leash. They just didn't get any support. They were actively undermined by Cersei the entire time. And I feel like Tywin knows that. And then, like, it's just devastating when she's like, oh, you never paid attention. Only your daughter was the one that's absorbing all your lessons, and I have this massive intellect. He's like, all right, contribute. And she says the Tyrells are a problem. His reaction is like, lol, what? Like,
yeah.
What do you propose to do about it? Like, that's the other thing is, like, it's easy to identify problems. Solutions are what get you to, like when Cersei was drinking herself into the pillage of King's Landing last season. Anyone correctly identify the problem, which we're all fucked and we're going to Sansa was the one that was looking for a solution or trying to put the best face of it, trying to be a leader.
Cersei shut down. Yeah,
Tywin's not impressed that someone's like, hey, we were in a bad spot and an ally bailed us out, and now we're kind of like having to bend. Yeah, not a great spot for our family. What do we do about it?
Yeah, I mean, Tywin's not even impressed by Tyrion, who was actively saving this. He was in the process of saving the city. So, yeah, I mean, he's certainly not going to be impressed by Cersei.
Yeah. And the other thing I thought is interesting, like if you're a person watching the show for the first time and, he answers the question like, well, what did I do when Tyrion, who I think is a waste of skin, was kidnapped?
Yeah.
I fucking went to war. What do you think I'm going to do for my firstborn and heir? Like, that should really be heavy in your mind if you're a fan, because my God, what's worse than launching an all-out war campaign? Like, what is Tywin going to uncork later on?
Right.
It's a little bit like, and something like I kind of only noticed like the peril of this like when I was watching again. I'm like, wow, that's like, what the hell? What the hell has he got up his sleeve? What is he planning? What are all those letters that he's writing all the time?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
And I like the character of Tywin because he doesn't really spell it out for you. There's something going on behind the scenes.
Right.
That he's got plans in motion.
Right.
But he's not out there telling you what they are.
Yeah. Like that's
why I say Varys is like the second most patient person in Westeros, because Tywin is just a monster of patience.
And Tywin would probably tell her to her face, like, hey, if you're so smart, tell me what my plan is.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the same knowledge that you do. It's like these are all these pieces, these are all these levers I'm pulling, and numbers I'm moving around in a column. So what would you do? And she's got no answers.
Yeah. So we go to Elena, who is completely over A, roses, and B, her house words. She really just has this dim view of the house, and she can't do anything to change it because she's not a man.
Right.
The best she can do is pull the strings behind the scenes.
Right.
Varys visits to talk about her interest in Sansa's well-being, and he tells her that Littlefinger is planning to take the north by way of Sansa, and that he has a plan to stop him.
I don't have much to add except for I love the line where she just...
This is the best line in the episode.
Yeah, she did the, like, what happens when the non-existent bumps against the decrepit?
I love it.
And she's also, like, so kind of disrespectful and dismissive of Varys, but also taking him seriously. Like, when he's like, may I have a seat? And he goes... When she opens her mouth, he goes to sit because it's like, who's going to tell him no? And she's like, no. No. If you want to contribute. I want to see what you got.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Varys' opinion that Littlefinger's the type of guy who would burn the realm if he could rule over the ashes. I agree with that.
No, she's very... I don't know if disarming is the right word. She gets you off your footing.
Right.
With both her candor, her, lack of propriety in many cases.
And she talks
all those things.
You might be quick to take offense to shit she's talking about you, but then like her next words, she runs her own house down.
Yeah,
and talks about how incompetent they all are. She's just like just a misanthrope. She hates everybody. Yeah. She has a what the hell?
A Demogorgon in her throat.
Yeah,
there's a Demogorgon.
Almost 100%. Let me take a drink.
It's a damn good idea.
What was I saying?
She's a misanthrope.
Yeah, she's a misanthrope. She's equal opportunity hater of everybody. Everyone's a fucking dumbass in her eyes, and she's lived long enough to see that prophecy become true.
Yeah.
But yeah, what is the plan? We don't have to wait long.
I think the next scene here, Marjorie visits Sansa, tells her a story of how she was jealous of her friend, who then grew up to marry someone, let's say, less important than the king of Westeros. It ingratiates her to Sansa, who agrees to be her friend. Oh, yeah, and also her sister by way of marriage to her brother Loras. I don't know if this that'd be cool is binding legally, but it's certainly like first and foremost on Sansa's mind now. It's hilarious, and I know Sansa is a young girl, right? In this story, she is not experienced. She's very naive, but oh my god, the blatant bald face manipulation here. It's crazy to me that Sansa just goes with it.
And it's also heartbreaking because like there's a moment of genuine joy that breaks out on Sansa's face that I don't know that I've seen since she found out that like her and Joffrey are to be betrothed in season 1. Yeah. And even then there was like a bratty, shitty, but Arya kind of like, Marsha quality to it. And this is just like, it's not often that Sophie Turner gets to show this emotion, and it's nice, but it's also sad because at the root of this, that's something I was trying to figure out. Like, does Marjorie really care about Sansa? Like, does she feel some good that like, I'm helping this girl out, and like or is this just like this is just a machination? Like, I have been given my orders from my grandmother to throw a monkey wrench in the cogs of Littlefinger, and I'm doing it.
It's hard to know with her. Like we talked about it with the orphans, right?
She's such a cipher.
When she goes to visit the people in the streets of King's Landing, is she doing that because she loves it, or is she doing that because it's part of her grand strategy?
Right, and that goes back like philosophically, like what is altruism? Is any is ever any of it entirely like because you do get pleasure from doing good and recognition of doing good and seeing positive feelings from other people. So is anything truly altruistic?
Here's what I think is interesting. I think this scene is the combination of both Varys and Olenna, and the result of it. Because if you look back at last episode, I think it was Shae sitting on the dock with Sansa. Shae very unwilling to play the game with Sansa, right? To tell these childish stories about these people. And then you see Ros come up to Shae and they talk, and then you see Ros talk to Varys, and Varys talk to Olenna. Olenna sends in Marjorie, and I feel like she's equipped with the knowledge that Sansa loves to play these games, right? Tell these stories. And that's how she's using that to ingratiate herself with Sansa. And then to get her to marry her brother, apparently. It's a big step, big ask.
Oh yeah. There's also a really cool world building detail that you find Sansa praying at this sad little godswood. It's literally just an ancient stump of a weirwood tree, because in the South all the weirwoods were cut down in the Civil War between the First Men and the Children of the Forest. And then the Andals finished a job that they didn't later on, and it's kind of cool because in ancient times this was a place where you could worship the old gods, and now it's kind of it's cool for that, and also like it's kind of representative of the Starks. You know, they've been literally beheaded, and you know, what is their legacy? Is it just going to be this stump that is going to be forgotten over time? Like, when's the last? Who's the last person that prayed at this godswood? That's the other thing I sometimes wonder.
Ned? Maybe Ned was down there.
I don't think Ned had. Maybe if Ned had become the king, that he had been down here all the time. Like, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do about Bobby? Oh my God, his like whore budget is out of control. Yeah. Like maybe. But I don't think he had,
Catelyn?
I don't.
Catelyn when she showed up, maybe
she's Faith of Seven. Ned built a sept up in Winterfell just for her. It's like the reverse. She's got this sad little wood carved mother and crone and maiden, and you know, probably doesn't even look right.
Maybe Ned, if he had survived, would have come back from King's Landing and said, you know, we need to upgrade that for you.
Yeah, right.
Like, I've seen what a sad little altar can do to your spirit. We're going to fix yours up.
Like, if Bobby spends 20,000 gold on his wine, I can get you some gold-plated sevens up here.
Right.
Get a septon up here to bless this thing or something. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we go on to Jeor giving a speech about one of their dead brothers. This is the namesake of the episode, while his body's burning on a pyre. Rast blamed Craster for starving that brother to death, and then Sam tries to defend him, and by extension the wildlings, I think. Inside, Craster suggests that they kill the wounded brothers and head home, or they can just leave him there and he'll do it himself. And some of the brothers take exception with that, and they start a fight, which ends with Craster and Jeor both dead, full-on chaos in the camp, and Sam, Gilly, and her son on the run.
Yeah, the whole man. There's this great scene because like I like Dolorous Ed's observation that who knew Bannon could smell so good, because that must be a mind fuck. Like if you're that hungry and that cold and there's a corpse burning that's also meat, and it's smelling like a barbecue. Like what? Oh man, what must that feel like? And it kind of shows, like, are these... I mean, I think Rast is an asshole. This Carl looks like a real asshole, but, you know, Craster's not doing himself any favors.
No, it's a muddy issue here. Yeah. You know, the brothers are up there starving.
Right.
Their tensions are running high, and when Jeor, like you said, maybe burns a good source of food here, if they were just willing to do some things that are unsavory, I think that kind of pushes them over the edge.
Yeah, and especially, I didn't even think of that, like, you know, what's a little bit of light if you're going to overlook this guy offering his sons to these monsters, what's a little bit of light cannibalism to survive? Yeah. You know, the fact that...
And look, if you're in a plane crash and you can do it.
Right.
You can do it up here at Craster's.
But Craster, you know, we talked about this, how he doesn't really understand the situation. Maybe he's drunk, maybe he's overconfident in Jeor's ability to maintain control, but when you are essentially just a shit human being relying on the morals and ethics of better men, and you taunt them with that, and you're outnumbered 50-1, maybe not talk so much shit. You know, maybe not be eating a leg of lamb right in front of them. Like if this guy, I don't know what this guy, what kind of guy, because if he's the kind of guy that would be generous and like have a decent head on his shoulders, he probably wouldn't have survived in this particular world, because you have to be hard, and he's got this arrangement with the White Walkers and all that. I don't know, but
I do love that line when, you know, he's telling them, hey, you can kill them and leave and save yourselves, or you can leave them here with me and I'll do the job. And then he takes that big bite out of that leg of whatever, chicken leg, hog's leg, I don't know.
Yeah. One of his wives died of the fall.
Yeah, sure. I think the implication there is that he could use the food. If you just want to leave your wounded here, I will take care of them.
I don't know if he'd eat crow, but I bet his wives would.
Yeah.
Because and they wouldn't get a choice. But The quiet escalation that Carl does, like when Gior is throwing Rast out to take the time to, like, not only are you a bastard, you're a daughter fucking wildling bastard. And then the bear getting stabbed, but then you think he's going to be able to throttle Rast to death up until he starts coughing up blood. It's and then you see, like, outside as Sam's runs together, just a massive melee happening where it's brother versus brother. Also, religious note, you hear the bear screaming about in the background, but this is the guest rite is something that's observed throughout Westeros, but it's also particularly sacred in the north because it's something that it's more about the old gods than the new. And this is a massive violation of guest rite. To murder a man who's sheltered you and given you bread and salt, that's what it requires to do that. And like you can hear George screaming about, "We'll be damned by the gods," and no one will forgive us for this. Like he's not. This is the big taboo in Westeros that they're violating here. So I just want to point that out.
Then we go to Thoros and company taking Arya, Gendry, and the Hound to their camp, which is a cave somewhere in the woods. There they meet Beric Dondarrion and his militia, who are tasked with killing the Mountain for his crimes, which all these crimes are pinning on the Hound as well, and he claims he had nothing to do with it, but he can't really deny Arya's accusation of killing the Butcher's Boy. He did that, and they decide to give him a trial by combat against Beric himself. That's the scene.
It's great. It's great because you know, the Hound likes to see himself as different from his brother.
Yeah.
And I do think there is a difference there. But he can't answer Arya's charge. Like, you know, the Nazis didn't get away with, like, oh, we're just following orders. I'd slaughter that boy just because someone told him to, someone told me to. And you can kind of, the way Rory plays it, like, you can kind of see that the Hound, like, has kind of got a moment of doubt here too. Like he's not like he's very righteous and forceful with like, you can slit my throat if you want, but don't think you're not murderers because I'm not my brother and I'm not. Oh, it's a crime to be a Clegane and But he can't really say anything to Arya. So interesting trial by combat. Boy, Beric looks like a grizzled badass in this scene.
He does, but he doesn't look like he could take the Hound. I'll say that.
No, that's the interesting thing. When there's a trial by combat, you can almost see like the Hound. Like I know for a goddamn fact, I could take any 6 of you single combat. I'm gonna break you in half.
Yeah.
I don't know, but there's a gleam in Beric's eye. I think he thinks he can take him. He's full of the Lord of the Lights glory or whatever.
Yeah. If I were, you know, the size of the Hound or the Mountain, let's say, or as skilled a warrior as Jaime, I'd be all for this tradition of combat by trial by combat.
Yeah.
Because who's going to take you?
Right.
No one.
No, I mean, it's like if you are the Clegane brothers or Jaime, it's essentially, I will never be charged
get out of
with
jail free
crime.
card.
Right.
For sure.
I thought, man, the Brotherhood story is so cool. Like they were the last righteous order ever issued from the Iron Throne. Ned saying, "Go forth and bring Gregor Clegane to justice." These guys are still out doing it and taking deserters from both armies and essentially like, fuck the two sides of the war. If you pillage a farmer's land or if you rape women, we're going to kill you.
They're Batman.
Yeah, they are.
Except they'll kill you.
Vigilantes. Yeah. They're all Rough Riders. They're like
they're more like, I guess, Darkwing Duck. You know, the whatever.
They're the terror that flaps in the night. Sure.
Yeah, they're gonna sneak up on you. They're gonna get you wherever you are.
But no, it's good. There's a lot of really dense like history here that like, the fact that the House Clegane is built on dead children. Talking about that's the the rumor that Gregor Clegane's raped the princess and killed her babies with his bare hands, splattered their brains all over their mother. Like it's some dark shit that they're talking about here. This is like the when you hear about the sack of King's Landing that Jorah was talking about last week. This is the shit they're talking about. He got grim. Yeah. There was really nothing to stop the bloodshed and violence.
All right, we move on to the final scene here where Dany turns up to take ownership of her new troops, the Unsullied, and she hands over the dragon. The slave master hands over control of the Unsullied, and once done, Dany reveals, "Oh, I spoke Valyrian the whole time while you were insulting me and demeaning me." And she uses the Unsullied to kill the slave masters, take back her dragon, and free every slave in the city. Finally, she turns to the Unsullied and frees them, but invites any who would fight for her of their own will to do so. And they all agree. Mm-hmm. So she's got her army free of moral and ethical charge.
Right. It's funny because, like, I can't see the scene of Dany, like, doing that slow turn back to look over her head while Drogon is setting the battlement on fire behind her without the, like, 16-bit sunglasses coming over her eyes. Yeah. Because that was, like, that's one of the gifts that came out of this episode, the whole, like, you know, deal with it. I just beat you at your own slaving game. Deal with it.
This is just an amazing scene.
It really is.
I mean, the righteous indignation from Dany when she reveals during the reveal that I spoke Valyrian all along. This was my plan, and now you're going to die.
Which is funny because, like, when I was watching the second time and taking my notes, I'm like, who cares? Like, this guy called you a whore and said you had saggy tits or whatever. He's also literally the worst person presiding over this god-awful thing that turns boys into soulless automatons and kills mothers at their kills babies at their mother's breast. Like,
yeah.
The added reveal and oh yeah, I also heard all that shit you were talking, dude. Like, so like you're dead within your rights to Dracarys this guy based on his actions, you know. But like that is the like badass part, right?
I mean, it is, yeah. It's Cartman making you eat your parents in the chili, like,
and licking your
right, and licking your tears. It's this was my plan, and you fell for it,
right?
And you're gonna know that in the moment that you die.
And yes, I'm getting justice in like a societal scale, but also it's personal, motherfucker.
Right?
I heard what you said about me.
Absolutely.
My tits are not saggy, and I am not a whore. Like. Yeah. It's pretty funny, but there's a lot of like we talked about the Jorah staggering through the smoke, but I really liked the image of the Unsullied trotting over their whip of oppression as they're coming out of the gate of the city. I love how like Jorah and Barristan got religion at the exact same time as they realized that she's instantly transforming the slave army into a free one.
Yeah.
And like she's like squaring the circle of the practical and the pragmatic versus the aspirational. Pretty good.
Yeah, she was 3 steps ahead of everybody, including her own people here.
Yeah.
Including her advisors.
I will say that as cool as the scene is, it does feel like, why in the world has no one ever tried to use this loophole before? You know, the fact that you can just like, hey, I'll take all your Unsullied. Offer.
I think because look, anybody who has enough money to come in and buy all the Unsullied, probably doesn't need them to try and take your city if they wanted to.
Yeah.
She just happens to have this thing that is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
The dragon that she can trade for it.
Yeah, it's almost like she used their own greed and appetite.
Right.
And the fact that, like, I'm sure Astapor is like, oh, wait till the other slave cities get a hold of this. We got a fucking dragon, you know. And that's the other thing you got to understand is, like, this is called Slaver's Bay. There's tons of slave towns kind of running the same racket. And, you know, is 8,000 Unsullied going to be enough to withstand the you know, because like I don't think they're gonna take this lying down. Like she is, she's it'd be like, you know, I don't know if a single person went in at the height of this of slavery in the South and like burnt Atlanta, Georgia to the ground. Like, unless you had a real army and logistics and all that behind you, what would that actually do?
I'm thinking about like. You know, the communism scare here in America, right? Like that's capitalism fighting back against communism, right? Like that's they see this small nugget of a threat coming in, and they've got to squash it.
Because like there's the slaves far outnumber the masters, so like if they ever just realized like, hey, you know, and were emboldened and saw that there was actually something to rally around, that's you know that's slave rebellions are always like brutally repressed and put down because like you can't let them get the ideas that you might be able to be free.
Right.
It's great. And like, you know, I talked about how like they did maybe go over a little bit overboard how grimdark this whole thing in Astapor is, like just every opportunity to make these masters the worst type of people, but it all pays off here because there's almost no atrocity Dany could commit against them
Yeah.
that you would be like, whoa, 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 let's cooler head should prevail here. It's just ultimately righteous.
Right. Nobody points out how dishonest Danny was in this scene. Right.
Right.
She should honor her deals.
Yeah.
No.
What kind of contract is this? We actually do have feedback on that.
Oh, fuck me. Okay.
There are people that do.
All right. Well, maybe we should get to that because that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. Feedback, of course, you can send to GameOfThrones@baldmove.com. I said this would be a supersized mailbag, and it is, but it was too supersized for me to get everything processed. I actually, a couple people wanted me to opine on some theories and stuff that I had to like gold star in my email box because I didn't have, I had time to compile, but I didn't have time to research it all. So some of this stuff I'm gonna, if you didn't get your, especially if it's like a detailed kind of lore or like what'd you think about this theory or that theory, I had to punt to next week. So I'll try to get around to all that next week. Without further ado, again, GameOfThrones@baldmove.com, forums.baldmove.com for a spoiler thread. Lewis C., just wondering, whenever the next book or two come out, which is likely at least a year after the show ends, would you guys consider doing a podcast on the books? Like read a couple chapters every week and then comment on them. The idea of a book club podcast for Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring. What do you think, Jim?
That's hard for me to do because I haven't read any of the books.
Yeah.
So I would have to probably read 5 big-ass books to get to 6 and 7.
Well, what? Because like at this point, the series would be over. Because I would like to find a way to do that. Like I don't think I'd do a couple. I'd like to take the book in like big chunks, like a third of the book at a time. Like the first 400 pages, next 400 pages, next 400 pages, and we'll be done. Because I just don't think the people like most people are going to read the book in less than 24 hours and want to talk about it.
Right.
So you stretch that out that long, and I just, there'll be a lot of other podcasters doing that. But I'd like to do, and it's not even the next books. Like Martin's coming out this November with Fire and Blood, which is this Targaryen history that I'm really interested to see if it sheds any light on things. I would like to do that. Like maybe you can just sit in, because like this will, like, especially the next book should just be alternate history versions of what we've already seen, and we can kind of compare and contrast.
Sure.
So I don't think you'd.
I think I'd be good to do that.
Right.
With just reading like book 6 and 7.
The Targaryen history might be a big ask because I don't know that you're that interested in it. I might find one of my fellow podcasters that would like to do something like that with me.
And I don't know that there's all that much about the Targaryen history in the show. Like there's a bit, but I'm sure that book is going to go way deep.
Right. I just like. I don't know why Martin's doing that. Like, it's a cool idea, but it does seem like maybe it's either a way for him to keep the publisher at bay, like, hey, I'll make a couple $1 million while I'm got my massive brain cramp and I got this giant writer's block. I don't know, but boy, when it was announced, people were like, are you fucking kidding me? You're writing fan fiction in your own universe without completing the actual narrative? What the hell? But it directly answer your question, Lewis. I would look if anytime a book like that's released, I would definitely check the Bald Move feed, because I bet there's going to be some information on it. Sean McGee. In the previous on for this episode, Thoros is heard to say the Lords of Westeros want to burn the countryside that we're trying to save. Why would a red priest use such imagery when fire is usually portrayed as purifying and not a catastrophe? Jim,
that's a damn fine question.
What do you think?
I'm not sure they thought about it deeply enough. I don't know, because I would tend to agree with the emailer.
I think that religious imagery, I don't know all of the world's religions how to feel about it, but like let's take the cross, right? That's a symbol of Christianity. Is every use of that symbol something that would be divine? Like if you take a mason jar filled with piss, for example, and throw a crucifix in it, is that divine? Like that's profane, right? I think you can profane, and this is just me as someone who's thought a lot about the subject. There's not there's clearly not a chapter and verse from the Lord of Light Volume 3 that you can cite here. But I think that just because something is holy does not mean it can't be profaned. And burning, like in their eyes, infidels burning innocent for that have no communion with the Lord of Light, so they're not sure of his will, would be that kind of profane. Like I think they would be very against it. You know,
Okay.
it'd be a desecration of what they think is something holy and a mockery of it. That's what I would get. Because like otherwise, like every time like you get a fire to cook a side of bacon, is that a holy ritual?
I mean,
If you smoke a bowl of herb out of your weirwood pipe, is that, like is that like communing with actually that is communing with the gods straight up. I've done it. Super recommend it. But like that's my answer there, Sean. I hope it's satisfying.
Or from a less, I guess, educated point of view, you could say it's just a colloquialism. Like, setting fire to something means destroying it to the people of Westeros outside of that religion. So he's just using it colloquially.
No, I would.
It's all about context.
I would imagine that a red priest would be like the people that were burnt alive, innocent, are probably welcome into the Lord of Light's arms,
right?
Their heaven. But the people that are doing it are like super damned.
Maybe. But then what if they're burned?
Huh?
But then what if you burn someone who's burned someone else and isn't a follower of R'hllor?
I think that's like, because like our former religion, the Jehovah's Witness, had the doctrine that like if you die pre-day of judgment, that because the Bible says the wages of sin are death. So if you die, regardless of what kind of shit person you are, you're going to get some sort of resurrection and judgment. Now, it might just be instant, like, oh, whoa, this is Hitler, lake of fire. Don't need much review on this, but like a lot of
that day you get to go home early.
Exactly. So it's like you're essentially tabs paid. I think that like they would probably feel that way too. That like even if you're evil, if you die by fire, maybe there's a second judgment. I don't know, because like, again, as cool as the world building is, as a person who's like studied this and written a lot of words on it lately, there are a lot of frustrating gaps, which is where Anthony and I's book kind of, I feel like this podcast turned into an ad for the book.baldmove.com. Anthony and I have kind of like, tried to use the real world religions to give us glimpses into what some of this fine detail might be. Anyway, Victoria, you mentioned in your last podcast that the Walk of Punishment was unusually funny. My boyfriend and I had the same reaction when watching the episode. I love awkward silences and coughs at Edmure's poor aim, etc. Oh, wait, not etc. Tyrion dragging the chair to small council, Arya and Gendry's reactions to Hot Pie's wolf bread, and everything about Pod and his magical rod. Because this episode feels so different than ours, I looked it up to see who directed it, and a quick wiki search confirmed that the director is David Benioff. The Walk of Punishment is his one and only Game of Thrones episode that he's credited with as director. I love watching Game of Thrones for so many reasons, but it's awesome to have the freedom to appreciate the subtle differences between episodes and consider why a director might put his or her spin on that episode. My question for you is, how do you feel about one cohesive narrative being created by different personalities? Do you think it usually works out well for Game of Thrones, or how has it been a barrier?
I've certainly seen it go wrong. But I think it's gone mostly right with Game of Thrones. I don't think there are many episodes I would point to and say that feels wrong as a Game of Thrones episode.
Right. And I think that's a lot of the responsibility of the showrunner and the executive producers is to find, like, we have a set quantity of work. Let's find the best person for that job. We got like my mind's blank on the guy who did Hard Home. I just literally had it. Sapochnik.
Yeah.
We got action. Let's get Michelle McLaren on the phone. Let's get Miguel Sapochnik on the phone. We got something that's like, a deep character dive. Let's get this other person on the phone. Something that's filmed at night. Like, this person's really good at low light. I feel like that's like their big job, is to like take all this work and give it to the very best people that they can find.
And to also shape the voice of the show and maybe help the writers fully understand what their vision for the show is.
Yeah.
And if that is, both funny and a thriller and high fantasy, like those kinds of things, it's their job to not only give the most appropriate person the work, but also to help the people who maybe don't have the exact same vision to get on board with the vision as a whole.
And I think the Double D's are real fans of comedy.
They famously wrote a spec script, and I guess
for It's Always Sunny
got an episode made.
I think they've had two now.
They've
written 2 episodes for Always Sunny. They did a commentary track for season 3 of Rick and Morty, where they're gushing about. Like, I feel like that's I wouldn't say the frustrated writer and then in him coming out, or the director in him coming out, but like they clearly have that muscle that doesn't get to be used very often.
Yeah.
So like if Benioff gets a chance to write an episode like really playing up that aspect, I think was probably satisfying for him. Mike McGee, last of the non-spoiler emails. The closing scene where Daenerys buys the Unsullied is undoubtedly badass and one of the most iconic of the series, but it left me with a bad taste in my mouth. I think the Masters got what they deserved, but if you were Jorah or Selmy, would you have qualms about negotiating with her in good faith after she basically screwed the guy?
Oh boy,
The Masters sold the
Danny's
Unsullied.
so dishonest. Danny.
Fucking yeah.
Yeah.
The Masters sold the Unsullied for the negotiated price, but she kills him after obtaining the whip. I mean, no. If you put put yourself in Jorah and Selmy's headspace. They don't give a shit about contract. Like, they're warriors. They probably look down at that kind of bean counting, and they both found this intensely distasteful.
Yeah.
The fact that she fooled these guys with their greed and arrogance and their dismissal of her as a woman, and then, I mean, like, I think they see this as a purely righteous action. Like, and I don't know, like, I guess that's how I kind of roll, too. Like, I don't think you can commit crimes against a tyrant. Like, if you had a chance to fool Hitler in a game of 3-card Monty that would have ended World War II 4 years earlier, and you didn't take it, you're an asshole. If you could defraud, if you could, you know, defraud him in some kind of tax scheme, if you could like what could you not do to bring down Hitler that would be like, whoa, I don't know if it's worth the stain on your soul that you did. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that if anything, they will have more respect for her as a leader.
Right. And the other thing is, I guess I'd have to ask, like, I don't believe that the Masters and Astapor have always, you know, dealt fairly with their clientele. There's no fucking way a person this evil and unscrupulous and utterly devoid in empathy would not take advantage of any. And the fact that they were blinded to the obvious con here because she's a woman and she's young and she's naive and they think she has the upper hand and they just like naked greed for power. Like, yeah, there might be someone out there, because like there always is, and Mike, you were the one in this mailbag that'd be like, I don't know how this sits with me, but like Jorah and Selmy, no fucking way.
No, it's fine with me.
Is that described them?
If I'm Jorah or Selmy in that situation, I'm coming out of this going, well played.
Yes, indeed. And that's all for the non-spoiler feedback. Again, Game of Thrones at baldmove.com. And again, I do realize that I didn't get around to everything. There was a couple for like, you know, especially 304 stuff that came in the last day that I didn't have a chance. But like, don't be surprised if it comes up next week, because I marked all the ones I didn't get to. Now we're for the spoiler section. So if you have not caught up on the books or the show at this point, season 3, book 3, you should probably shut it off now. Actually, no. You just need, if you're not caught up, period, because we talk about everything. This is in the spoiler
you've got to be up on season 7.
Season 7 of Game of Thrones, and have read all the books, because if you're super spoiler phobe, to stay away from that.
Yeah, it's made in 2018. Come on.
Yes.
What do you want?
Let's get on with it. Theon torture count. I'm kicking it up another notch because I do believe that this could be construed as torture.
Absolutely. It's emotional torture.
Yeah.
Psychological torture.
Yeah, and also being constrained to some kind of weird inverted or sideways crucifix is torture alone. You know, like just being strapped to that thing, especially just suffering under that'd be a form of torture. But Sean McGee has a finer point question about the way we're counting torture. Because I feel like you guys are doing the torture count all wrong. This is because you forget why you're doing it. By counting the false escape, you are counting as torture things the character of Theon will eventually see as torture. This is totally fine if you're trying to measure something about the character development of Theon, but the reason why you're counting it is because the audience complained about the gratuitous violence of the torture. Even more specifically, people complained about the purient nature of the violence, calling it torture porn. Watching a person fooled into thinking he can escape and get almost raped, I think, does not fit into the category. What do you think, Jim?
So is he suggesting that we watch it and judge it as if this was the first time we'd seen it? Because I guess I would agree that last episode was not torture if if you have only seen it once, right? Because you don't know the end goal here. You don't know the ruse.
But I feel like it's also curiously lacking the aspect of the audience becoming aware of the torture and then looking back at the relatively uptick in Theon's circumstances. Like
that's what I mean. Yeah,
he's being tortured. We're being tortured along with him.
It's the difference between first viewing and second viewing.
Right.
First viewing, in the moment, I don't know this is torture until it's revealed the mop boy Ramsay has taken him.
But then looking back, you'd be like, oh, that stuff that I started to feel
Right.
good about Theon is now like extra bad.
Exactly.
And that feeds into the wariness. Like, here's the thing. We're 4 episodes in, we got 4 tortures. I think it's starting to become obvious that maybe, and I don't know, like we can still debate about whether they had to make this point, because you know some people in the mailbag were starting to make that like, well, you know, you got to just really convince people that Ramsay's a bad guy and Theon's broken. I don't think anyone's questioning that is the story that they had to tell. I think people are questioning is at what point do we get the point, and it becomes
Sure.
just almost like, hold on, God damn it. Being betrayed by my body. I think the real question is at what point does the story is the story requirement satisfied, and it's more about the showrunners kind of liking this dark heart kind of stuff. You know, like let's say, like for example, like if Eli Roth were showrunning the show, Eli Roth might be like, I don't know, I think they really soft pedaled this Ramsay business. It's different from everybody, but
If Steven Spielberg were directing
Sure.
this, the torture would be very, very different.
right. They would take out I'm just seeing like them replacing the knives and stuff with like walkie-talkies.
The corkscrew and just a walkie-talkie that they're screwing into his foot.
Yeah.
Ooh, that antenna's so stiff.
Oh my God, he's squelching. The static, the static. But I think you're not doing the job, and I don't know.
The trouble is you don't get a second chance at this, right? You get
Right.
the one shot, and all the episodes are released, and the
Right.
audience goes, "Oh, that was too much."
Right.
Oh, it's already over.
And I can see where reasonable people can disagree. But I feel like I'm counting it right. Because you're right. Theon is not seeing it at the time, but he'll look back on it as torture, and so will the audience. So that's why I'm counting it the way it is. But yeah, if people feel strongly about it other ways, then I'll probably still keep counting the way I want to count it because it's at least half of my podcast, and Jim doesn't seem to disagree. So
That's how it goes.
I wanted to talk about some points. What if Tywin doesn't die? Does he successfully bring Joff to heel? Oh, let me ask you this. Who is the so this is the question about Varys, like, who's the power, who's the real power? Maybe the Kingsguard would be ultimately loyal to Joffrey if they take their vows seriously.
Doesn't Joffrey die before Tywin does?
He does.
Yeah,
Okay, so
so-
I should say both of them survive. There is no purple wedding.
Okay.
There is no.
Because I remember him educating Tommen in
Yes.
a couple of scenes. And
Yes.
that was way after Joffrey's dead.
Tommen would have been much more malleable and much better king. In my
Right,
opinion.
right. So I feel like Tywin got a shot.
Yeah.
And he just never accomplished it.
I didn't think he had time to do it. But no, I think I think that like all of the Lannister household guards, which seem to be doing a lot of gold cloak type duties, and all the gold cloaks, they're going to be loyal to the people paying them, and to the the patriarch of the house. So like, I don't think Joff would have any allies if he defied Tywin. So I think he absolutely would break. And I can think Tywin would like shove him off a fucking castle wall if he had to.
He might. Yeah.
Because hey, Tommen, better looking, not a complete shit. Oh boo hoo, let's ring the bells. King Joffrey's dead. Long live King Joffrey. King Tommen though.
Yeah, and I look at where they were in the last moments of Joffrey's life.
Right.
Nothing had gotten better. Tywin had a good amount of time to try and bring this kid around, and he had not succeeded in any way.
Yeah. I don't know. I always thought Joffrey seemed afraid of Tywin. The other thing I think
He does,
Tywin,
but he still didn't have control over him.
But I'm saying like
Look at that wedding.
But does Tywin just like let that like I think that yes, Tywin had let things go and he had a reasonable amount of time. But I guess what I'm saying is if he couldn't bring the Boy King to heel, I think Tywin would have killed Joffrey. Because here's what I think
might
Tywin
have.
would see is like, Yeah, I might not foresee that Tyrion's going to kill me in my shit chambers, but I'm an old man in a medieval world, and you know I could die at any time. Like, what's going to do to my dynasty if I let this crazy person? You know, I got to be able to mold the next generation to where it's going to kind of roll, or I'm not going to let this idiot undo all my work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think he would have been able to do it. We already talked about the kind of like the politics of Sansa in the non-spoiler podcast, like, you know, like how much of this was like altruism, how much of it was politics. So maybe maybe we don't. I mean, I don't think that we get any more insight into it. Like, I think Olenna is pure politics. Marjorie, I don't know. I think she could take it or leave it.
Take or leave the politics?
No, like
or
the fact
friendship
that, like,
of
yes,
Sansa?
exactly.
Okay, yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think she would like enjoy the fact that she could make this person happy and all that, but like,
Yeah.
We also talked. I talked about the massive violation of guest right, and I didn't realize this when the first time I was watching this is how like this is such a Chekhov's type of situation, and it's very played low key because it's just a Gior screaming about in the background, but this is a foreshadowing of the massive violation of guest right that we're going to see in the end, and also. It's also kind of cool seeing Tywin writing all these letters and knowing that he is architecting the Red Wedding. Like the whole time, like, you know, he's making Tyrion and Cersei wait. He's exchanging letters with Bruce.
That's what I mean. He's not talking about it. He's just getting shit done.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It's good.
And he's not even like bringing his small count. He just got this thing handled.
Yeah.
Finally, I couldn't help but wonder when Dany's marching this 8,000 plus strong army out of the gates, how the fuck is she going to feed that army? You know, because she's still broke. Even if she pillaged all the wealth and food out of that city, like, how are you going to, like, they're marching into, like, this thing that looks like a desert. They've been, like, that's kind of the climate. Like, I feel like...
yeah, you're not going to get much trade there, which is probably the lifeblood of that city.
Yeah.
Trade, like, they're trading troops for the goods that they need.
Right.
And slaves, and
As
she's not going to be doing any of that.
As detailed and intricate as Martin's world is, he does, like, give kind of short shrift to that kind of logistics.
Yeah.
You know, it's all like, and again, because I think people give the Double D shit about that, like, oh, it's all just round numbers and whatever, sounds impressive, or, but like, I don't think George, and it's like, who cares, right?
Yeah, I mean, the economics of it is maybe not the thing he thinks of foremost, but the politics, is pretty good coming up.
Yeah. Did you have anything you want to talk about?
I like that in Bran's dream, Jojen tells him you have to go find that raven up there.
Yeah.
You know how. He's not telling him to go get that bird. He's telling him to go up north to find, you know, the three-eyed raven, to become the three-eyed raven. I like that.
Go north, young man. Anything else you want to talk about before we get to the spoiler feedback?
Nah, let's do it.
All right, Audrey T's up first. Had a random thought in the shower the other day that I can't get out of my head. Is there anything in the text or the world of Ice and Fire that suggests that Tywin planned on turning on the Mad King before Robert's rebellion? If memory serves, King Aerys supposedly took liberties with Tywin's wife Joanna on their wedding night, and perhaps even additional times after. This usually spurns people into thinking Tyrion is a secret Targaryen. But wouldn't it also make Tywin unquenchably furious? It's said that on his wedding day was the one time Tywin ever smiled, as he loved Joanna dearly. I can't imagine this happening without Tywin vowing to destroy the king and the whole Targaryen dynasty. Or, I'm sorry, dynasty. I could easily see him biding his time for years, maybe even moving some pieces around that would end with the Targaryen downfall, all while acting like an ally. What do you think, Jim?
I don't know enough about this to comment.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, like if Robert's Rebellion hadn't happened, that is something that wouldn't have set well with Tywin. And, you know, you could easily imagine Tywin giving like a fire and blood speech the way Prince Doran does in the books about, you know, kind of the same deal about the rape of Princess Elia and the death of her babies, and what an insult that was to their whole kingdom, their princedom rather. So yeah, I could see Tywin doing that. And if you read the history, there's a lot of like misunderstanding mutual misunderstanding between Tywin and Aerys. And, you know, like, Aerys got his feelings hurt because Tywin didn't do the thing he thought he should do, and then Tywin got his feelings hurt. But like, the thing that's not spoken is like, what was the initial thing that kind of like caused this to happen? And, you know, Aerys fucking around with Tywin's wife, because yeah, that's one thing that does seem like the one thing that Tywin might have been a whole different cat if Joanna hadn't died. You know, I mean, he's always going to be the kind of like avenging angel of the Lannisters that's taking the respect back, that's reclaiming their corners. But would he have been a shitty father, or even if he had, would Joanna been able to balance that out so their kids turned out differently? I mean, that's something that definitely turned his character fundamentally colder and more distant and aloof. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Kenneth P. I was searching Google for any news about the books. He's speaking of Winds of Winter about a month ago, and I came across this article in winteriscoming.net. In it, the author of the Outlander series, Diana Gabaldon, I believe is her name, Gabaldon. The author of the Outlander series details a conversation she had with Martin about his progress, and he replied as such: "I'm having all kinds of trouble. Have you ever just killed someone off that you later realized you needed? I have painted myself into a corner." Instantly, I thought of Robb based on his past remarks on the TV version of Robb and his admission that he should have made Robb a POV character in the books. Do you think he regrets killing Robb, or do you think it's someone else? Furthermore, regardless of who it is, can you imagine a problem like this killing an entire story?
Man, I'm trying to remember where we are in the story in the books.
Halfway through
it's not
book 3.
Stannis, right? Stannis is not dead yet in the books?
Stannis is not dead yet.
Okay.
Trying to think of the people who have been killed in the books. So you've got Prince Doran's son that came across and he got burnt to death by Dany's dragons. I don't think that's it. You got he killed Tywin. He killed Kevin Lannister. Pycelle. I'm wondering if it wasn't because here's the thing. I don't think it's Robb, because I feel like the first 3 books Martin kind of nailed.
Yeah.
Like, this is exactly what I want to do, and then he intended to just wait 5 years and then come back to tell the other story of how the realm is made right. But when he started doing that, he started coming into problems with, like, well, how did this person get here? And how has Cersei kind of kept things together if it's just, like how do all these things happen?
Is it Jon?
Huh?
Is it Jon? Isn't he dead at the end of the final
I think
book?
he's got it. Like, there's so much foreshadowing about how that would happen.
I would assume so, yeah.
I try to think, like, I wonder if it's somebody like Kevin, like, he's now having the same problem, like, shit, how in the world does Cersei not just collapse upon herself? Because everybody that could possibly save the realm has been dead, or is on the other side, and I'm not ready to bring them down to be the avenging hero yet. I wonder if it's something like that, because the first 3 books, I just feel like Martin really just nailed. And it's feast and dance that he was kind of winging, doing his gardener versus architect shit, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and out of his hands. And the people that died in those books, I guess Robb felt like that was architected. Like, it's another invert. You think he's going to be the young conquering hero, and he's dead.
It's talking about Ned. I just never should have written these books.
Yeah.
Never should have killed Ned.
Who else could he? Because, like, I guess there's, like, Beric Dondarrion. I mean, I don't believe that the Hound is dead. It can't be the Hound. I don't know. That's I'm
what about
curious to see what everybody else feels. But he's got her back in the form of Lady
but she's not
Stoneheart.
the same.
Not the same, but that's his decision. Like, she's still alive. He could figure out a way, like, even though she's got pieces.
But he's saying he
missing.
regrets one of his decisions.
That's true. But, like, I'm saying, like, why couldn't he just soften Cat? Like, the rules of what happens when you're resurrected are not quite set in stone.
Yeah.
You know, we've got Beric's tale of it. But like, Beric died 5 or 7 times, probably. And, you know, yeah, he says, oh, yeah, there's pieces of me missing. I'm not the same person. But he's not a villain. Like, Cat is like a borderline, you know, she's like a Magneto character. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but Jesus Christ, it's a little too far, right? I don't know.
The Hound?
But I don't, like I said, I think he's dead. I don't think he's dead. Like, that's,
Right, I agree. He's
a
probably
poorly
not
kept
dead.
secret, if so.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what he could have actually meant by that.
I'm curious of what our fans think. Because and I'm going to do some more thinking on it too, because that's a little intriguing quote that I'd not actually seen yet. That just came out in June, so I missed that one. Jeff, this was one of my favorite episodes because of the last scene with Daenerys. She is in this moment probably the best option the realm has for queen/king. She's equally powerful, cunning, and respected by the lowest members of the society. She stays strong the rest of the season when she takes Yunkai and when she first takes Meereen, but then her character does a complete stall for 2 full seasons. Do you think it would have made more sense for her character, or just for pure enjoyment, if some of her story had been changed and moved around? what I was thinking was that if this season, which arguably has a lot of great moments already, had Daenerys going to Pentos or some other city and learning to rule alongside the leadership of that city. Then in late season 4, they do all this stuff with the Unsullied, and then season 5, all of this stuff in Marine, but cutting out all the bullshit parts and only getting to the quote-unquote good stuff. I feel like this would be a lot more interesting instead of taking the season 2 character that was whiny and weak and making her great and then doing nothing for her for a season and a half.
I don't know. I've never had the same problem with Dany, you know, the just getting stuck over in Essos for however long, because I've always viewed it as a learning experience for her.
Right.
And
they also have cut a lot of that stuff. Like it's arguably that they've already cut most of the bad shit out of the Marine stuff and condensed it.
Yeah, so I guess I just don't agree that it was necessarily bad. Like there's plenty of stuff that I think they maybe should have cut or changed or whatever in ensuing seasons, but Dany's stuff, I thought she needed to learn the lessons that she learned. You know, she has one triumphant moment here, right, where she bamboozles the slave masters, but she doesn't think through the consequences of her actions. And that's the thing that Jorah and Barristan are trying to tell her, is like, you need to think about the consequences.
Like, this absolutely wouldn't work. It's like she took this army, this skill set, over to King's Landing. She gets her ass kicked by Tywin.
Yeah.
And it's not just, and that's everything you got to think about.
For her dragons to grow. Like, there's a lot of the stuff that happens over there that I think is important for Dany to grow into the person that she needs to be to take Westeros.
And then there's two things happening. Dany is growing, and Westeros is getting weaker.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Dany with her Dothraki screamers and her Unsullied, does she outfight Tywin?
Probably not.
Does she? I mean, like,
especially not with small dragons.
There's formidable, like, her dragons have to grow. Like, all the this is, you can see why Martin wanted to do the 5-year flash forward, because he could yada yada through. Right. You know, Dany is ruled as the queen of Slaver Bay, and she's amassed her power, and she's learned that the value of patience, and she's built up a spy network, and she's penetrated Westeros, and you know, and also Tywin is now dead, and all, but you can see why just flashing forward 5 years would. You know, now you don't have a 16-year-old Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. You don't have a 12-year-old girl becoming a master assassin. You don't have, you know, like it helps out a lot of things. But alas, it didn't happen. I wonder if, because like, I get it, like, you got to tell some stories, but man, Feast and Dance are massive and in my mind poorly edited. Like, how do you go from like expanding the 5-year thing to all that stuff? I don't know. I wonder if the thing he killed off and he regrets is the 5-year gap. Like, if he could go and with full knowledge, maybe you just do the 5-year gap, and I have a novella I come out later that tells some of the more interesting things, like the death of Tywin Lannister and all that stuff.
He should just go back and write a book that replaces the last 2 books. Why not? George Lucas did it.
Yeah, and like Stephen King had fucked with that Dark Tower a lot.
Just say, I want my redo. I'm taking a mulligan. I'm gonna redo these books, and we're gonna untie this whole knot.
Especially, we're gonna retie the Marinese knot and just yada yada 5 years later.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Shaka C, question about Jon Snow. What do you think of the theory that Varys knows who Jon Snow is? I've been thinking about this, and I find it hard to believe that Rhaegar Targaryen disappeared for basically a year during Robert's Rebellion, annulled his marriage, and got secretly remarried by the High Septon, assigned 3 Kingsguard to guard his expectant wife with all the Master of Whispers knowing nothing about it. I could see Varys making the conscious decision to let Ned Stark simply take the child with him to the north and die with the secret, as it would have been more trouble than it's worth to try to install Jon as the new Targaryen when Viserys was the known alternative. I could see Varys being the confirmation to Dany, especially on the show once Bran and Sam and maybe Howland Reed expose Jon's origins. Ironically, he would probably be the most credible source to other in-world characters. I guess I agree with most of that analysis. Like, I do think that Varys probably knows.
I think if anybody would know, he's the guy.
Or he knows in the same way that Tyrion knows Cersei had tried to get him killed in the Battle of the Blackwater.
Right.
He might not have the receipts and the records.
Birth certificate, yeah.
But, like, that's a pretty compelling timeline you just laid out there.
Sure.
But, you know...
And they do kind of need somebody to... I don't know. I mean, do they need somebody to verify it in the show? Because we know as an audience, right? They've shown us enough to know.
I think so.
100% that
Yeah, because like it's one thing for us to know, but it's like when we as the audience know who killed the real killer is in a murder mystery. Well, that doesn't do the characters any good. They still have to solve it, right? Like,
Yeah, but what does it matter?
yeah, Bran knows.
I mean, John has found his way into like to being hand in hand with the Queen of Westeros. You know, the eventual Queen of Westeros.
right.
From my assumption. So, what does it matter if he's a Stark or a Targaryen to you know the eventual outcome of this?
The only thing that matters is it might, you know, if you start. The way it would matter is it could potentially start shit between Dany and Jon, depending on how they handle that information. Like, I don't think the shit's going to be started on Jon's side. It might be Dany, because, like, you know, they've been playing with the idea that Dany might be going mad, you know, or she's let her quest for righting the wrongs take her down dark paths, and, you know, she could see Jon as a rival to her grand scheme of breaking the wheel. That, I guess, is the only thing that would...
But they also don't have to do any of that, right? They don't have to go down that route.
No, I just feel like they're going to. I don't like it, but I remember feeling that strongly after last season, that, like, they're going to start shit between Dany and Jon just to start shit.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it would be more satisfying if the characters had some kind of proof, but I don't know that they absolutely need it.
Because like, here's the thing. Bran knows it. Yeah. Jon's going to believe Bran. His sisters will believe Bran. That's the North.
Sure.
And so, like, Dany either believes it or doesn't. Because, like, here's the thing is, like, Dany won't give a shit. I mean, I guess if Varys knows and he can back it, then that would be something she would probably put stock in. But she doesn't give a shit about Howland Reed or anybody like that. So, anyway, Tyson. What would you guys think if Germs came out and said something like, I've written the ending a million different ways, and there's only one way that feels emotionally right. Problem is, it makes something earlier in the books not make sense, and I can't find a way to resolve it. If everyone could just forget this one thing or give me a mulligan, I'll send the books to the publisher tomorrow. So this is the Jim Jones theory.
Yeah, I
just
say
got put up.
Whatever book contains the thing that doesn't make sense after you write your ending, just go back and republish it without that. There you go, problem solved.
Yeah,
I say this totally tongue in cheek. There's no way he can get away with that, right?
Oh, well, why can't he?
Because the fandom would hold on to it like they did with. Hashtag like Han shot first. Like that whole thing, there would be a huge rift in the fan community. And if he wants to cause that, I guess he can. But
if everyone agrees that the next books come out and they're and they're great, does anyone matter? Because let me give you an example. Like No Man's Sky, right?
Yeah,
that thing was a shit show. That video game got released and had so much expectations. It's a total shit show. I'm kind of in disbelief that it's having a comeback.
Yeah,
like
these guys I played it most of last night.
Okay, because I was watching Crafty on Twitch play it, and he's just having a fucking ball. And I'm like, how have these devs continued to polish this thing in the background and almost getting like a second PR boost by like, hey, we've actually got it, and this is more like the game we sold you a year ago. Like, I feel like fan bases, yeah, they're fickle. They're quick to be pissed, but they're also, if you give them what they want, they're quick to overlook the thing that got them there. I mean, you'll definitely have people that will like be starting shit in every thread from now until the heat death of the universe about George taking the easy way out. But like with the majority, like if we're talking about that bell curve, would the majority of people care if the product in the end is good and he's just honest and says like, hey, I fucked up?
I don't know. I mean, the majority, it's hard to say, but I think books are a very different medium than games. Like people expect games to evolve and change and get more content, different content, updates. People don't expect that with books. They sort of view them as written in stone. Yeah. Once you've told your story, that's the story, and now it's your job as a writer to figure out a way to tell that story to its conclusion satisfyingly. Yeah,
and I also think that I honestly don't understand why George is taking this fucking long. I feel like this is much more of a psychological problem than a plot, because things don't feel that fucked up in the books, and like the double D's certainly have found the way to proceed that isn't like causing outright outrage, and they're doing it on they have to come out with another book's worth of material every fucking year, no exception. So like I think if George had the proper pressure applied to him, that this is more procrastination than real writer's block.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the man or his lifestyle or his situation, but yeah, I mean, when you go this long, knowing that you need to write a book, and there are a lot of pressures on him to write this damn book. And you don't do it. It's not because you can't quite figure out the story.
Right.
Because writers have a million tools in their arsenal to patch over broken road in their story. And if you just refuse to use those, then that's like some mental hurdle you need to get over, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, because like with the arch villains of the universe, the White Walkers, we don't know anything about.
Right.
Really, 5 books in. So like, there you go. Like you could probably smooth a lot of broken ground just by having them. Like at some point, you got to shit and get off the pot. And I feel like the White Walkers could just invade at any time, and that would focus everything right up. You know.
That's true. Yeah.
And also, like, you know, Dany's posed on a war. She's actually, you know, she's got touch of the plague out in the wastelands of Drogon. But like, you know, she could really quickly reunite the cows, crush the last vestiges of the resistance in Slaver's Bay. Her dragons are now grown, and she's learned to master at least Drogon, or at least to have some kind of uneasy alliance with him. Like, it's all there. And then the White Walkers, you know, someone gets a hold of the Horn of Joramun and blows. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it, because like, there's no fucking way it's taken this long to resolve this problem. There's no way.
No, I guess if I were in his position, I would be thinking, it's never good enough. Like, it's. I have put myself in a position where everyone is expecting the most brilliant work they've ever read. And every time I look at what I've written in these chapters, I say, that's good, but it's not great.
Right.
And you can say that forever.
Especially
and I feel
when
like
the first 3 books, I think he felt turned out perfectly.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things like, holy shit, I haven't had to compromise anything. I did everything I set out to do. These last 2 books have been tough, and now there's 100 million people literally watching.
And I think that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
There's so many eyes expecting so much of him.
It's a psychological problem. He needs to, like, I don't know, microdose on LSD or something. He needs he needs to do something to get his brain chemistry on the right track, because I feel, I mean, I feel sorry for you can feel about someone who's that rich and famous,
right,
and has that much creative and personal power, because it does seem like he's in a hell of his own creation. All right, let's move on. Darrow S. I'm a show-only fan. There's something I would love a little clarification on. The red priests and priestesses are far more common in Essos, but the prince that was promised is tied to the Long Night, which took place in Westeros, which is a connection. What is the connection between the two? Well, it's interesting, because it's my understanding that the prince that was promised is actually a Targaryen legend. That the Targaryens, or like a Valyrian legend, that the Targaryens got interested in with Prince Rhaegar. That, like, you know, he got real deep into the library and started reading all these ancient tomes and came up and said, oh, I got to get cracking on this, because whatever. But I will say that, like, you're supposed to understand in Westeros, well, in the world, in Planetos, that this long night befell the entire planet. And much like, you know, there's religious scholars that have gone through and looked at, like, all these there's Sumerian flood legends, and there's the biblical flood legends. There's flood legends in the Asian cultures, and like, this might have, like, some point in the dawn of humanity, there might have been like a massive localized flood back when we were still like in the plains of Africa and the Middle East, that left such an impression that when humans spread throughout the whole globe, that we still carried that legend around with us. And you're supposed to understand that the Long Night, that a real event that happened thousands and thousands of years ago, that every culture has a little spin on the essential truth of what happened there.
Yeah.
So Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised, and other legends, that the last hero, these are all different ways to tell the same story of the same phenomenon that happened.
Right.
So that's what kind of bridges them together. Because, like, I think that some people think that this is just something that happened to Westeros. Like, when, like, I think the planet, it's like an ice age. The whole fucking planet, just like the ice just started forming all over it, and other continents were dealing with it in different ways. But so yeah, that's my short answer on that. Ali, I'm confused by the idea that Jaime deserves praise and not censure for killing the Mad King. His father was had control of the city. Couldn't he have just restrained the king until the good guys came? He killed the pyromancer, so there was no chance of the wildfire being used. Yet he made the decision to go the extra step and kill the king and should be vilified for it. Or do you think that any action against his king, restraint or murder, would have had the same response due to him being in the king's guard and thus sworn to protect the king? Protect and obey.
I guess I just don't see it the same way.
I mean, I think that we're also looking. This is a pretty modern way to look at like a character like Jaime.
Sure.
Like it's similar to like the contractual obligations Dany had to the Masters. Like, you know, in Jaime, like Jaime was a very idealistic youth that really looked up to the Kingsguard and the institution as like the epitome of what a knight is, and yet he has to watch this terrible person cackle as dozens of people are murdered right before his eyes. Innocent people, good, just, noble people. And I just don't think, you know, now Jaime's still Jaime. Like, he did that, and then, you know, we've heard from several accounts that when Ned Stark saunters in, or not saunters, when he comes in, Ned Stark does not saunter,
No,
nor does he sashay.
He tromps.
He does not mince.
No.
Yes, he stomps and tromps. When he stomped into the throne room, and Jaime's kind of sitting on the Iron Throne, like in a lackadaisical manner, like maybe one leg thrown over the edge, and he's just kind of slouching there. And that's where I think if Ned Stark had come in there and he had like laid the king's body to rest and was like, you know, like standing over vigil over his body and was like taking that kind of attitude about the gravity of what he did, but it's a lesser of two evils, I think Ned has a different reaction than when he sees this guy smirking on the throne and like, what if Tywin made it to the throne room before me? Would you guys just like it sullied it? And I don't know why Jaime did that.
Yeah, no, it's a weird choice in that moment.
It seems out of character, like he anticipated the reaction, like he prejudged what everyone's going to say about it and decided to live up to that image. It's a very bizarre choice, because I have a hard time, you know, squaring Jaime tearfully talking about how he spares the Kingslayer thing and how unfair it is, and the wolf.
I mean, is it possible that Ned lied about it?
No, I don't think so.
That would betray his character, right?
Right.
Like the two characters seem to be at odds here.
Especially when you're talking
in
about
this
things
story.
that like these are like a lot of were like Ned's inner thoughts.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I mean, so what if would Ned misremember Jaime sitting on? I could see Jaime sitting on the throne, distraught, and Ned being just misremembering the emotional aspect of it. But
Right.
why would Jaime be sitting on the throne? Period. That's not something you do if you accept the gravity of what you did. You compromise.
He tripped and fell.
Exactly.
Right
Yeah.
into the throne.
Slipped, tripped,
Whoops.
and fell on the crown. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know. I guess I don't view that as an ethically terrible move by Jaime to kill the Mad King when there was a chance to subdue him. He was about to commit some truly heinous shit. He clearly had both no qualms about doing it and potentially no idea what he was actually doing.
Right.
I feel like in that moment, in that world, Jaime is well within reason to just take this guy out.
Jaime would be elevated to saint status if he had the restraint to, like, you know,
Right.
imprison the king for later trial by the usurpers.
And I think he had already had to kill the other guy who was
The pyromancer.
there,
Yeah.
and was actually going to set off the wildfire.
Yeah.
He had already done some murdering.
Yeah.
Why not just nip this in the bud, you know? Like,
Right.
as much as you can, a king who has already, you know, gone mad and committed all sorts of atrocities.
I agree. Jay, question about season 3, episode 2. If Tywin Lannister were to die of natural causes in season 3, wouldn't the laws of succession give Casterly Rock to Tyrion? Tywin argues like he is never going to give his ancestral home to Tyrion, but if he is dead, he really does not get to chime in on that. It does not sound like wills and estates are a big thing in Westeros. If Tywin's plan was to
Joffrey would, though.
True. Yeah.
And Joffrey ain't giving shit to Tyrion.
So, and he says, well, I guess Kevin Lannister could put up a fight, and event, or like essentially dispute and that's, so I think that's what the mistake people make is they think that these laws of hereditary and succession
Right.
are some ironclad thing that everyone always respects all the time. Like, they're only respected in times of peace and if it's what the powerful want to happen.
Yes.
Like, if the powerful want something else to happen, they will annul marriages, they will cancel alliances, they will stab people in the back, they will do whatever it
whatever they
takes.
think they can get away with, you know,
Right.
to empower themselves
Exactly.
and their family.
Might literally makes right. Like, there was not a shred of tradition that said that Ned and Robert were right to raise their banners and go to war and usurp the throne.
Yeah.
They made it kind of right in the and put Robert up there because he had some great grandmother with a Targaryen ancestry through the Baratheon, but like that was just the cloak that they hung over it to after the fact.
Right.
You know, there is like, it's like these are laws, but they are respected as well as our own laws when they come in conflict with the rich, wealthy, and powerful and influential.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones has nothing to do with hereditary rights.
Yeah. So like Cersei and Jaime would just get with Joffrey, and Joffrey would pray with the High Septon, and it turns out that the will of the gods is that Jaime for his valorous service and Tyrion for his utter shit. To look at the gods, they've cursed the man. How could he possibly inherit these lands? Give to Jaime.
Right.
That's
Done.
exactly what would happen.
Yep.
Mark from Denver, Colorado. While watching and listening to Season 3's podcast, I started to wonder, why isn't Howland Reed marching with Robb? After Ned's death, I would think he would be right there with Robb marching on King's Landing.
Howland's up doing other shit right now.
I mean, I don't know, because like, I don't know what George wants, what his role for Howland to be. I will say that like the Crannogmen, Howland Reed's guys are more like special forces, and in the books, they are actually the ones that are leading this guerrilla campaign to secure the homeland against the Ironborn. So they're actually patrolling the Neck, and they're really fucking taking it to Yara and the Greyjoy forces, and using their poison arrows and just doing. I think there's a little bit of that in the show too. Just really reaping a grim harvest. So and you know, I can't even remember. Maybe Robb even decreed that. But yeah, I don't. It'd be like sending in your special forces to fight a conventional land war on like open terrain. Like, it'd just be a waste.
Send them to the beaches of Normandy.
Exactly. Like, you send your commandos behind the lines to fuck shit up and get in and out and cause confusion, and they're not built. Like, they're a slight people. They use camouflage and mobility to strike where you not expect them to be. So the real question is, why did Howland Reed, follow Ned in the first place? It's because they have this like really like intense personal loyalty that goes back to when they were kids, and there's this whole story about the Night of the Laughing Tree and this like tournament that happened, I think, at Harrenhal. You'd have to get into this whole big book thing about why they're such fast friends. But yeah, that's the explanation. Final email, Abe. After having watched Season 7, I was amazed during my rewatch of the episode how much Drogon had grown over the course of this series. This got me thinking, are Dany's dragons done growing? Presumably Viserion is not going to get any bigger, but what about the 2 living dragons? I mean, that's a stunning statement of scientific fact.
Snowballs get bigger.
Come
on.
That's true, and they're not alive.
Just roll him around in the snow. He'll get bigger.
Exactly. He'll absorb the snow force.
Yeah.
Is it possible?
He'll be snow gone.
Viserys Snow. Is it possible that we will see an even larger Drogon in Season 8? And if so, is that what would give Dany an edge over the Night King? Would be interested to hear your thoughts on this, and if the books give any hints.
I mean, I guess I hadn't considered that they're not quite full grown yet.
Yeah, like,
they look so huge, but yeah, maybe.
Balerion the Dread, which was Aegon the Conqueror's personal dragon, was big enough to swallow an Oryx, which is like a super ox in Game of Thrones parlance, whole. And his wings were so wide that it said that like he could when he flew over a town, he could shroud the entire town in shadow. And that's just the biggest Targaryen dragon. The Targaryens were a relatively middle of the road Valyrian house that only escaped the doom of Valyria because one of their princesses had a dream that shit was about to go down, so they de-assed over to Westeros. So in the books, it's stated a few times that dragons are kind of like crocodiles, that they never stop growing until they die. The rate of growth slows. But like if I think Balerion was like 150 to 200 years old when he finally died. And I think he died of old age, so that kind of puts some sort of bound on how long. Like, I wouldn't be very surprised if a dragon could live twice that long, or if they would die like at the age of 50 or 60 of natural causes. But yeah, they can get fucking huge. Like, imagine like the biggest muskox you've ever seen, or like an elk or something like that, and a creature that could swallow it whole, or like a knight could swallow a knight on a horse whole, or something like that. And if you ever see a picture of like Aegon, like he's just this little tiny stick figure on Balerion's neck. So they don't stop growing. They can get, like, Drogon is, I would say, not even halfway grown.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't know, because he is pretty fucking. But look at that scene where like Dany's at the dragon pit.
Yeah.
And
then the one where you mean with Cersei, where
where she gets off, like, that's not Balerion size. That Drogon couldn't swallow a horse.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I think I think they can get much larger. So there you go. And I think you see the skull of Balerion in like season 1, and it is way bigger than, like, it's like, you know, it's like you could probably fit 6 men in those jaws compared to Drogon. So yeah, they'll get bigger. And that's the feedback we got. Once again, right. Game of Thrones at baldmove.com, forums.baldmove.com if you want to join in the spoiler thread. We'll be back with we're on episode 5 already.
Already, yeah. Almost halfway through.
Crazy. Time is flying. We'll see you that next week. Until then, I'm Aaron.
I'm Jim.
Later.